Hello, English learners. Welcome back to English in Advance. I am your host, Jessica, and I am so happy to have you here with me today for a very special extended episode where we are going to dive deep into the English language to help you build your confidence and fluency across a wide range of real-life topics. Today, we are going to start by talking about something that I am sure almost every single one of you does, probably quite often. We are going to talk about shopping, focusing specifically on online shopping. You know the feeling. You are sitting on your sofa, maybe with a cup of tea, scrolling through your phone, looking for a new pair of shoes, or perhaps a gift for a friend, and with just a few clicks, a package arrives at your door a few days later. It is convenient, it is fast, and it is a huge part of our modern lives. But doing it in English can sometimes be a little bit tricky because there is specific vocabulary and there are specific phrases that native speakers use, which you might not find in a traditional textbook. So today we are going to walk through the entire process together, from browsing the website to checking out, dealing with returns, buying groceries, booking travel, social situations like dining out, taking care of your health, and even navigating the professional world of business. My goal is that by the end of this session, you will feel completely comfortable navigating almost any transaction, social interaction, or professional scenario in English. So settle in, relax, and let's get started with improving your English skills in a way that is practical and useful for your real life. Let's imagine you have just opened a website because you want to buy a new jacket. The first thing you are doing is what we call browsing. Browsing simply means looking through the items without necessarily having a specific target in mind. Or perhaps you are just looking to see what is available. When you browse, you might use a tool on the website called a filter. This is a really important word. To filter means to select specific criteria to narrow down your search. For example, if you only want to see black jackets, you would apply a filter for the color black. You might filter by size, by price, or even by material. If you are speaking to a friend about this, you might say, "I spent hours browsing for a dress, but I had to filter the results by price because everything was so expensive." Try saying that with me to get the feel of the rhythm. I had to filter the results by price. It is a very common phrase. Now, as you are looking at these items, you will see a lot of descriptions. This is where your B1 and B2 level English really comes in handy because product descriptions use a lot of adjectives. You might see words like water resistant, breathable, or lightweight. If something is water resistant, it means it can handle a little bit of rain, but it is not fully waterproof. It is a subtle difference, but an important one if you are planning to go hiking in a storm. Let's talk about the decision-making process. You see something you like, but you are not quite ready to buy it yet. You might add it to your wish list. A wish list is a list of things you want to buy later. But if you are ready to buy, you click a button that usually says Add to Cart, or sometimes Add to Bag, or Add to Basket. In American English, we usually say cart, like a shopping cart you push in a supermarket. In British English, you might see basket more often. So you have added the item to your cart. Now before you pay, what is the one thing you must do? You must read the reviews. Reading reviews is honestly one of the best ways to learn natural, colloquial English because people write exactly how they speak. When you are reading reviews, you are looking for specific phrases about the quality and the fit. A very common phrase you will see is true to size. If a piece of clothing is true to size, it means that if you usually wear a medium, the medium will fit you perfectly. It is not too big and it is not too small. However, sometimes you will see a review that says, "This runs small." The phrase "runs small" means the sizing is smaller than average. If a review says, "This shirt runs small, so I suggest sizing up," it means you should buy a larger size than you normally would. Conversely, if it runs large, you might want to size down. These are phrasal verbs that are essential for online shopping. Size up and size down. Let's practice that in a sentence. The reviews say, "These boots run small, so I am going to size up." Can you hear how natural that sounds? It is much better than saying, "I will buy a bigger size." It shows you have a higher command of the language. Another thing to look for in reviews is comments about the material. Someone might say, "The fabric feels cheap," or "The material is scratchy." Scratchy means it is rough against your skin and uncomfortable. On the positive side, you might read that the fabric is soft, durable, or high quality. You also want to look for the phrase "highly recommended." This is a strong collocation. We do not usually say strongly recommended in this context. We say highly recommended. For example, great quality, highly recommended. If you see that, it is usually a safe bet to buy the item. Now let's imagine you have made your decision. You have checked the size chart, which is the table that tells you the measurements, and you are ready to buy. You will click on a button that says "Proceed to Checkout." The checkout is the virtual cash register. This is where the money changes hands. During checkout, you will see two very important terms regarding your address. You will see billing address and shipping address. This can be confusing for learners, so let me explain. The shipping address is where you want the package to go. It is where you live or where you want the gift to be delivered. The billing address is the address connected to your bank card or credit card. Usually, these are the same, and there is often a little box you can tick that says billing address, same as shipping. But if you are buying a gift for your mother who lives in another city, the shipping address will be her house, and the billing address will be your house. At this stage, you might also see a box that asks for a promo code or a discount code. Everyone loves a discount. If you have a code, perhaps from a newsletter you subscribe to, you enter it here to get money off. You might see a phrase like, "Apply code at checkout to get 20% off." Once you have entered your payment details, which needs to be a secure payment method, you will hit Place Order. Placing an order is the action of finalizing the purchase. You don't say, "I did an order" or "I made an order." You say, "I placed an order." For example, "I placed an order for that laptop yesterday." It is a very specific verb we use for shopping. After you place the order, you will usually receive a confirmation email. This email is very important because it contains your order number and eventually your tracking number. Let's talk about that for a moment. A tracking number is a special code that allows you to see exactly where your package is. You can track your shipment. You might refresh the page every day to see the status change from processing to shipped, and finally to out for delivery. Out for delivery is the most exciting status because it means the driver has your package and it will arrive at your house today. But of course, life is not always perfect, and sometimes things go wrong with online shopping. This is where your English skills need to be very sharp because you might need to contact customer support. Let's imagine a few scenarios and learn the phrases you would need to handle them. Scenario 1 is that your package has not arrived. It is late. You check the tracking and it hasn't moved in days. You need to write an email or use a chatbot to ask for help. You wouldn't just say, "Where is my stuff?" That is a little too informal and arguably rude. A polite and effective way to say this is, "Hello, I am writing to inquire about the status of my order." To inquire is a formal way of asking. You could also say, "It looks like my package is stuck in transit." Stuck in transit is a great phrase. It means it is somewhere between the warehouse and your house, but it is not moving. You might ask, "Could you please look into this for me?" Look into is a phrasal verb meaning to investigate. So putting it all together, you are saying, "Hello, my order number is 12345. It seems to be stuck in transit. Could you please look into this for me?" This is professional, clear, and polite. Let's look at scenario 2. The package arrives, but the item is damaged, or it is the wrong item. Maybe you ordered a blue shirt and they sent you a red one. This is called a mix-up. You need to contact them and say, "I received my order today, but unfortunately, there seems to be a mistake. I ordered the blue shirt, but I received the red one." You might then ask, "How can I go about exchanging this?" The phrase "how can I go about" means, what is the process for? It is a very advanced native structure. You are asking for the procedure. Or, if the item is broken, you would say, "The item arrived damaged. I would like to request a replacement or a refund." A replacement is a new item sent to you. A refund is when they give you your money back. It is important to know the difference. Sometimes, if you just don't like the item, maybe it doesn't fit, or it looks different in person than it did on the screen, you will want to return it. You need to check the return policy. The return policy is the set of rules about sending things back. You need to look for information like, are returns free, or do you have to pay for shipping? You might see the phrase free returns, which is great, but sometimes you might see buyer pays return shipping. You also need to check the window of time. Most stores have a 30-day return window. This means you have 30 days to decide. If you wait 31 days, you are out of luck. That is a good idiom to know. Out of luck means you have no chance. When you prepare the return, you usually have to print a shipping label. You stick this label on the box and take it to the post office or a drop-off point. Sometimes the company will charge a restocking fee. This is a small amount of money they keep to cover the cost of putting the item back on the shelf. It is annoying, but it is common, so you should read the fine print. The fine print is the small text at the bottom of the contract or the web page that has all the detailed rules. Always read the fine print so you are not surprised. Let's shift gears a little bit and talk about the psychology of online shopping and some idioms we use related to spending money. Have you ever gone online just to buy toothpaste? But you ended up buying a new lamp, a book, and a pair of socks. We call this impulse buying. An impulse buy is something you buy suddenly without planning, usually because you saw it and just wanted it in that moment. Websites are designed to encourage impulse buying by showing you sections like, "You might also like," or "Customers who bought this also bought." It is very easy to get carried away. To get carried away means to lose control and do too much of something. I got carried away and spent $200. If you are trying to be careful with your money, you might say, "I am trying to stick to a budget." Or if something is too expensive, you can say, "That costs an arm and a leg." That is a classic idiom. Or perhaps, "That is a ripoff." A ripoff is something that is priced much higher than it should be. It is bad value for money. On the other hand, if you find something amazing for a low price, you can call it a steal. You could tell your friend, "I got this designer bag for $50. It was a total steal." This means it was almost like stealing because the price was so low. Another great word is bargain. A bargain is something that is good value for money. Everyone loves hunting for bargains. Now let's move beyond general browsing and clothing to a sector that has exploded in popularity recently: online grocery shopping. Buying food online is quite different from buying clothes because you have to deal with freshness and expiration dates. When you visit an online supermarket, you will often see the term delivery slot. A delivery slot is the specific 1 hour or 2 hour window when the driver will bring your food. You might say to your partner, "We need to book a delivery slot for Friday evening before they are all taken." Booking a slot can be competitive, especially during busy times like holidays. Once you are filling your basket, you need to be aware of the term substitution. This is unique to grocery shopping. If the supermarket runs out of the specific brand of milk you ordered, they might swap it for a different brand. This is called a substitution. Usually the website will have a checkbox that says, "Allow substitutions." If you are very picky and you only want that specific brand, you should uncheck that box. If you don't, you might end up with something you didn't want. Imagine the driver arrives and says, "I have a few substitutions for you today. You can either accept them or reject them at the door. If you reject them, they take the item back and refund you." Another key term in grocery shopping is perishable. Perishable items are things that go bad quickly, like milk, meat, and vegetables. Non-perishable items are things like canned beans, pasta, or rice. When you are ordering perishables, you want to hope the shopper picks items with a long shelf life. The shelf life is the length of time a product stays fresh. You don't want to receive milk that expires tomorrow. If that happens, you would contact customer service and say, "I received milk with a very short use-by date." The use-by date is the date after which it is not safe to eat. There is also the best before date, which is slightly different. Best before is about quality, not safety. The food might still be safe to eat after this date, but it might not taste as good. Knowing the difference between use by and best before is very important for managing your kitchen and your complaints. From the kitchen, let's go to the living room and talk about buying electronics online. This is where the vocabulary gets a bit more technical, but don't worry, we will break it down. When you buy a laptop, a phone, or a camera, you are often looking at the specs. Specs is short for specifications. These are the technical details like memory, storage, and processor speed. You might read a review that says, "The specs are great for the price." One word you will see a lot is refurbished. A refurbished item is not new. It is a used item that has been checked, repaired if necessary, and cleaned by the manufacturer to look and work like new. Buying refurbished is a great way to save money. You might say, "I bought a refurbished phone, and it works perfectly." However, you need to check the warranty. The warranty is the guarantee that the company will repair or replace the item if it breaks within a certain time. A standard warranty usually lasts 1 year, but at the checkout, they will almost always try to sell you an extended warranty. This costs extra money and gives you protection for 2 or 3 years. You have to decide if it is worth the cost. A useful phrase here is void the warranty. If you try to open the electronics and fix them yourself, you might void the warranty. This means the warranty becomes invalid and the company will no longer help you. So be careful not to void your warranty. Now, unfortunately, the internet has some dishonest people, so we need to talk about internet safety and avoiding scams. A scam is a dishonest scheme to steal your money. When you are shopping on a new site, you should look out for red flags. A red flag is a warning sign. For example, if the prices are too low, that is a red flag. If a luxury bag usually costs $2,000 and this site is selling it for $200, it is likely a counterfeit. Counterfeit means fake. It is an imitation. We also use the word knockoff. A knockoff is a slang term for a fake product. You might hear someone say, "That is a cheap knockoff, it's not the real thing." Another scam is phishing, spelled with a PH. This is when you get an email that looks like it is from Amazon or a bank, asking you to click a link and enter your password. Never do this. Legitimate companies will never ask for your password via email. If you are unsure, you can check the URL. The URL is the web address at the top of the page. Make sure it is spelled correctly. Scammers often change one letter to trick you. If you realize you have been scammed, you need to contact your bank immediately and dispute the charge. To dispute a charge means to tell the bank that you did not authorize the payment or that you were tricked, and you want them to reverse it. Let's lighten the mood a little and talk about the experience of receiving your package. There's a very popular trend online called unboxing. Unboxing is exactly what it sounds like, the process of taking the product out of the box. Believe it or not, packaging vocabulary is quite useful. When you open a box, you might find bubble wrap. Bubble wrap is that plastic sheet with air bubbles that protects fragile items. It is very satisfying to pop the bubbles. You might also find styrofoam peanuts. These are little white pieces of foam that fill the empty space. When you take the item out, you are checking for defects. A defect is a flaw or an imperfection. If the item is perfect, you might leave a glowing review. A glowing review is a very, very positive review. You might write, "The item exceeded my expectations." To exceed expectations means it was even better than you thought it would be. On the other hand, if you are disappointed, you might say, "The item did not live up to the hype." To live up to the hype means to be as good as people said it was. If everyone said it was amazing, but you thought it was just okay, it didn't live up to the hype. Writing reviews is actually a fantastic way to practice your English writing skills. I encourage you to try it. When you write a review, try to be specific. Instead of just saying it is good, say, "The build quality is solid and the design is sleek." Sleek means smooth and stylish. Or you could say, "It is user-friendly." User-friendly means it is easy to learn how to use. If you are writing a negative review, try to be constructive. Constructive criticism provides suggestions for improvement. You could say, "The device is good, but the battery life could be better." This is much more polite than saying the battery is terrible. Let's practice a dialogue scenario involving a customer service live chat. This is a very common way to solve problems now. Imagine you are typing into a chat box. You start by saying, "Hi, I have a query regarding my recent order." A query is a question. The agent might ask for your order number. You provide it, then you explain the problem. Let's say the problem is that you received the wrong size. You type, "I ordered a medium, but I received a large." The agent might say, "I apologize for the mix-up. We can process an exchange for you." You might then ask, "Do I have to pay for the return shipping?" This is a crucial question. The agent might reply, "No, we will provide a prepaid shipping label. Prepaid means they have already paid for it. You just print it and stick it on." Then you might ask, "How long will it take to receive the replacement?" They might say, "Once we receive the return, we will ship the new item within 2 business days." You end the chat by saying, "Thank you for your assistance." Assistance is a formal word for help. Now that we have covered physical goods, let's expand our horizons. The world of online shopping is not just about boxes arriving at your doorstep. A huge part of our modern spending happens in the world of services and travel. If you have ever tried to book a holiday online in English, you know it can be a minefield of confusing terms and hidden conditions. So let's master the vocabulary of booking flights, hotels, and experiences. When you book travel online, you are usually looking for flights first. You will visit a travel aggregator website. An aggregator is a site that collects information from many different airlines to show you the best prices. When you search, you have to choose between a one-way ticket or a round-trip ticket. A round-trip ticket takes you there and brings you back. In British English, you might hear this called a return ticket. You will also see options for direct flights versus flights with a layover. A layover is a stop at an airport in between your departure and your destination. For example, if you fly from London to Tokyo, you might have a layover in Dubai. Sometimes a layover is very short, maybe just 1 hour, which can be stressful. We call this a tight connection. If you are talking to a travel agent or a friend, you might say, "I am worried about making my connecting flight because the layover is only 45 minutes. If the layover is very long, say 24 hours, we sometimes call it a stopover, and you might leave the airport to visit the city. When you are booking the flight, you have to be very careful with the fare class. Economy is the standard cheapest option, but nowadays there is something called basic economy. You need to watch out for this. Basic economy often means you cannot bring a carry-on bag. A carry-on bag is the small suitcase you take with you onto the plane. If you buy basic economy, you might have to pay extra to check a bag. Checking a bag means handing it over at the counter to be put in the cargo hold. Always read the baggage allowance. Baggage allowance is the weight and number of bags you are allowed to bring for free. If you go over the weight limit, you will be charged an excess baggage fee, which is usually very expensive. You might hear a traveler say, "I had to pay $50 because my suitcase was 2 kilos overweight." Now, let's talk about booking accommodation. Whether you are booking a hotel or a vacation rental like an Airbnb, you need to know the lingo. You will look for amenities. Amenities are the extra features that make your stay comfortable, like Wi-Fi, a swimming pool, a gym, or complimentary breakfast. Complimentary is a lovely word that means free. If the listing says complimentary breakfast included, you don't have to pay for your morning coffee. You should also check the cancellation policy carefully. Many cheap rates are non-refundable. This means if you get sick and cannot go, you lose your money. However, you can often pay a little bit more for a flexible rate, which allows you to cancel up to 24 hours before arrival. It is often worth paying extra for the peace of mind. Peace of mind means a feeling of calmness and safety. When you are looking at vacation rentals, you are often dealing directly with a host. You might need to message them to ask questions. You could say, "Is the location walkable to the city center?" Walkable means close enough to walk. Or you might ask, "Is there a late check-in option?" If your flight arrives at midnight, you need to know if you can get the keys. A very important term in this area is hidden costs. You might see a room for $100 a night, but when you go to pay, the price jumps to $150. This is often due to the cleaning fee and the service fee. Always look at the total price breakdown before you get excited. Let's shift our focus to a different kind of online transaction, the gig economy and digital services. Maybe you are not buying a physical product, but you are hiring a freelancer on a site like Upwork or Fiverr, or perhaps you are buying an online course. When you buy a digital product like an ebook or a software program, you are usually looking for instant access. You will often receive a download link or an activation key via email. A common issue here is subscription fatigue. This is a modern phrase describing the feeling of having too many monthly payments. Netflix, Spotify, gym memberships, cloud storage, it adds up. To manage this, you might look for a lifetime deal. A lifetime deal means you pay once and you keep the product forever. It is the opposite of a subscription. You might tell a friend, I bought a lifetime license for this language app so I don't have to pay monthly. Now, let's turn the tables. We have talked a lot about buying, but what about selling? Selling your old things online is a great way to make money and declutter your house. Decluttering means removing things you do not need anymore to make your space tidy. There are many platforms for this, like eBay, Facebook Marketplace, or Vinted. When you sell, you become the merchant. First, you need to create a listing. A listing is the advertisement for your item. You need to write a catchy title and a clear description. In the description, you must be honest about the condition. We used terms like brand new and refurbished before, but as a seller, you might use terms like good condition, fair condition, or for parts only. For parts only means the item is broken and does not work, but someone might want to buy it to use the screws or the screen to fix another device. One of the most challenging parts of selling online is negotiating. People will almost always try to haggle. To haggle means to argue about the price to get it lower. You might list a camera for $100 and someone will message you saying, "Will you take 80? This is an offer." You can accept the offer, reject the offer, or make a counteroffer. A counteroffer is when you meet them in the middle. You could say, I cannot do 80, but I would accept 90. If you do not want to negotiate, you can write firm on price in your description. Firm on price means you will not accept a penny less. You might also see the acronym OBO, which stands for or best offer. So you might write $100 OBO. This tells buyers you are willing to negotiate. Sometimes you will encounter a lowball offer. A lowball offer is a price that is ridiculously low and almost insulting. If you are selling a car for $5,000 and someone offers you $2,000, that is a lowball offer. You can simply ignore these people or reply politely, "No, thank you, that is too low." When you are arranging to meet someone to sell an item in person, perhaps through a local marketplace app, safety is paramount. Paramount means the most important thing. You should always meet in a public place. You might say, "Let's meet at the coffee shop on Main Street." Never invite strangers into your home unless it is necessary for large furniture. If you are selling a sofa, you might say buyer must collect. This means you will not deliver it. They have to come and get it. You might also say you will need a van and 2 people to lift it. This manages expectations so they don't arrive with a tiny car. Let's look at some idioms and phrases specifically related to value and cost, which you can use both as a buyer and a seller. If something is very expensive but worth it, you can say it is worth every penny. For example, that noise-canceling headphone set was expensive, but it is worth every penny. If something is cheap and breaks easily, you might use the proverb, "You get what you pay for." This means if you buy the cheapest option, you shouldn't expect high quality. If you spend more money than you intended, you can say, "I went over budget." Or, on the positive side, if you save money, you can say, "I came in under budget." A very colorful idiom for something that is useless is a white elephant. This usually refers to a gift that is useless and troublesome. But in online shopping, if you bought a giant exercise machine that you never use and it just takes up space, you could call it a white elephant. We have mastered the digital marketplace, but one of the main reasons we learn English is to connect with other people in the real world, to share a meal, to laugh, and to build relationships. So let's take all this confidence we have built and step out into the world of dining out, socializing, and making small talk. This is where your personality really gets to shine through the language. Let's imagine a very common scenario. You want to go out for dinner with a friend or a colleague. The first step is often making a reservation. While you can do this online, sometimes you have to call. When you call a restaurant, your opening phrase should be, "I would like to make a reservation for 2 people for Friday night at 7. They might ask, "Do you have a preference for indoor or outdoor seating?" Seating refers to where you will sit. If the weather is nice, you might say, "We would prefer a table on the patio." The patio is the outdoor area. Sometimes the restaurant might be fully booked. This means they have no tables left. They might say, "We are booked solid for 7, but we can fit you in at 8. To fit someone in means to find a small space or time slot for them. You might agree to that, or you might say, "That is a bit too late for us, but thank you anyway." Now, fast forward to arriving at the restaurant. You walk in and see the host or hostess. You say, "We have a reservation under the name of Jessica." To be under a name means that is the name written in their book. If you didn't book, you would ask, "Do you have a table for 2? They might say, "It will be a 20-minute wait." You can decide to wait at the bar or go somewhere else. Once you are seated, the server will give you the menu. In many English-speaking countries, the server will start by asking, "Can I get you started with some drinks?" This is a standard opening. You might order water. They will ask, "Still, sparkling, or tap?" Still water has no bubbles. Sparkling water has bubbles, like soda. Tap water comes from the sink and is usually free. If you want to save money, asking for tap water is very common and perfectly polite. Let's look at the menu. Menus can be overwhelming because they often use fancy descriptions. You might see words like glazed, seared, or roasted. These describe how the food is cooked. Glazed means it is covered in a shiny sweet sauce. Seared means it is cooked quickly at a high temperature to get a brown crust. If you are unsure what a dish is, never be afraid to ask. You can say to the waiter, "Could you tell me a little more about the chef's special?" Or simply, "What do you recommend?" Asking for a recommendation is a great way to interact. The waiter might say, "The salmon is very popular today." A very important part of dining out nowadays is dealing with dietary restrictions. A dietary restriction is a limit on what you can eat, either for health reasons or religious reasons. You need to be very clear about this. You might say, I am allergic to peanuts. This is serious. Or, I am a vegetarian. Do you have any meat-free options? A common question is this dish gluten-free? If you don't like a specific ingredient, you can ask to leave it out. For example, could I have the burger, but hold the onions? To hold something in this context means to not include it. It is slightly slang, but very common in diners and casual restaurants. Alternatively, you can say, could I have the dressing on the side? This means they will put the salad dressing in a small cup, not all over the salad, so you can control how much you eat. Let's talk about the flow of the meal. The waiter will come back and ask, how is everything tasting? You should answer, it is delicious, thank you. Or, if there is a problem, you need to be polite but honest. If your soup is cold, you say, excuse me, I am sorry to be a bother, but my soup is a little cold. Could you heat it up for me? Using the phrase, I am sorry to be a bother, softens the complaint. It makes you sound reasonable, not angry. If they made a mistake, like bringing you chicken instead of steak, you say, I think there has been a mix-up. I ordered the steak. They will usually apologize and fix it quickly. Sometimes, to apologize, they might say, we will take that off the bill, or this dessert is on the house. If something is on the house, it is free. It is a gift from the restaurant. Now we arrive at the end of the meal and the tricky business of paying. You ask for the bill by making eye contact and saying, could we get the check, please? In the UK, they usually say bill. In the US, they say check. When the bill arrives, you have a decision to make. Are you paying for everyone or are you splitting it? If you want to pay for everyone, you say, it's on me, or it's my treat. This is a very generous thing to do. If you want to share the cost, you say, let's split the bill. There is a specific idiom for this. Let's go Dutch. To go Dutch means everyone pays for their own meal. It is very common among friends. However, on a first date, this can sometimes be a point of confusion, so it is good to clarify. You might ask the waiter, can you split the check on 2 cards? Most places will do this happily. Finally, there is tipping. Tipping culture varies wildly across the world. In the US, it is almost mandatory to leave a tip of between 15 and 20% because that is how servers make their living. In the UK or Australia, it is less strict, maybe 10% for good service. If you are unsure, you can ask a local friend, what is the tipping custom here? You leave the tip on the table or add it to the card machine. Now let's move away from the logistics of food and talk about the conversation. You are sitting there with your friend or colleague. You need to make small talk. Small talk is polite conversation about unimportant or uncontroversial things. It is the social glue that starts a relationship. The classic topics are the weather, the weekend, and work. But you want to move beyond just saying, it is sunny. You want to ask open-ended questions. An open-ended question is one that cannot be answered with just yes or no. Instead of asking, did you have a good weekend? Which is a closed question, ask, what did you get up to this weekend? The phrase get up to means do. What did you do? They might say, I went hiking. This gives you a hook. A hook is a piece of information you can grab onto to continue the conversation. You can ask, oh, I love hiking. Where did you go? Or how long was the trail? Listening is just as important as speaking in small talk. You need to show you are interested. We do this with active listening sounds. These are little words like really, wow, oh no, or that's interesting. If someone tells you they lost their keys, you say, oh no, that's annoying. If they tell you they got a promotion, you say, Wow, congratulations. Using these reaction words makes the speaker feel heard and validated. If the conversation hits a lull, don't panic. A lull is a quiet period or a pause. It is also called an awkward silence. You can break the silence by changing the topic. You might say, "By the way, have you seen that new movie everyone is talking about?" Or, "Speaking of work, how is your new project going?" Using phrases like "by the way" or "speaking of" helps you transition smoothly to a new subject. Let's practice some specific social scenarios. Imagine you are at a party and you don't know anyone. You need to mingle. To mingle means to walk around and talk to different people. You can approach someone and say, "Hi, I don't think we have met. I am Jessica." They will introduce themselves. Then you need context. You can ask, "How do you know the host?" This is the classic party question. They might say, "We work together." Then you can talk about work. If you are at a work conference or a networking event, the conversation is a bit more formal. You might ask, "What line of work are you in?" Or "Who are you here representing?" When you want to end a conversation at a party politely, you shouldn't just walk away. You should say, "It was lovely meeting you. I am going to go grab another drink." Or, "I see a friend over there I need to say hello to." "Excuse me." This is polite and allows you to move on. Sometimes you might want to invite someone to do something. This is a big step in friendship. You can keep it low pressure. Low pressure means they don't have to say yes. You could say, "I am going to grab a coffee. Do you want to join me?" Or, "A few of us are going to the cinema on Friday. Would you like to come?" If they say yes, great. If they say no, don't take it personally. They might be busy. If you are the one being invited but you can't go, you need to decline politely. You can say, "I would love to, but I have a lot of work to do." Or you can use the idiom, "take a rain check." Can I take a rain check? This means you can't go now, but you would like to go another time in the future. It is a very friendly way to say no. Let's talk about the nuances of agreeing and disagreeing in conversation. If you agree with someone, you can say, "Absolutely," or "I couldn't agree more." If you disagree, you should be careful not to be too blunt. Blunt means direct and maybe a little rude. Instead of saying "you are wrong," you can say, "I see your point, but I view it a little differently." Or, "Actually, I am not sure I agree with that." This is called hedging. Hedging is using softer language to protect the other person's feelings and keep the conversation friendly. For example, if someone says, "British food is terrible," you might say, "Well, actually, I think some of the traditional dishes are quite comforting." You are disagreeing, but you are being nice about it. Another aspect of socializing is paying compliments. Everyone loves a compliment. You can compliment someone's appearance, but be careful. Complimenting clothes is usually safe. "I love your scarf. Is it new?" Or, "That color really suits you." To suit you means it looks good on you. You can also compliment their skills. "You are so good at telling stories." Or, "You have a great eye for detail." When you receive a compliment, the best way to respond in English is simply, "Thank you. That is very kind of you to say." Don't reject the compliment. Don't say, "Oh no, I look terrible." Just say thank you. It shows confidence. Let's touch on a slightly funny topic, the Irish goodbye. This is a slang term for leaving a party without saying goodbye to anyone. You just slip out the door. While it is efficient, it is generally considered a bit rude in small gatherings. It is better to find the host and say, "Thank you for having me." "Thank you for having me" is the standard phrase when leaving someone's home. You might add, "I had a wonderful time." Then you can leave. I want to give you a scenario to visualize. Imagine you are meeting a friend for coffee to catch up. To catch up means to share the news of what has happened since you last saw each other. You arrive at the cafe. It is noisy. You shout a little. It is loud in here. You order your lattes. You sit down and say, "So tell me everything. What is new?" Your friend starts talking about a problem they are having. Maybe they are stressed. You need to show empathy. Empathy is understanding their feelings. You can say, "I am so sorry to hear that," or "That sounds really tough." You don't always need to offer a solution. Sometimes people just want to vent. To vent means to let out their frustration by talking. Just listening is enough. Then the conversation shifts to something happier. You laugh. You share a joke. This back and forth flow is the heartbeat of friendship. Let's review some of the idioms we have used today because they are so useful for sounding natural. We had break the ice. To break the ice means to start a conversation in a tense or quiet situation. We had go Dutch for splitting the bill. We had take a rain check for postponing a plan. We also have talk shop. To talk shop means to talk about work when you are not at work. If you are at a party and two colleagues start talking about spreadsheets, you might say, "Hey, no talking shop tonight. Let's have fun." Another good one is to be the life of the party. This describes a person who is energetic, funny, and makes everyone happy. You might say, "Sarah was the life of the party last night." Now, we are going to turn our attention to something that is arguably the most important topic of all. We're going to talk about your health. Knowing how to describe how you feel, how to navigate a doctor's office, and how to discuss fitness is not just about fluency. It is about safety. If you get sick in a foreign country, you need to be able to communicate exactly what is wrong so you can get the help you need. So let's explore the vocabulary of the body, the clinic, the gym, and even mental wellness. Take a deep breath, relax your shoulders, and let's get started. Let's begin with the basics of seeing a doctor. In many English-speaking countries, like the UK or Australia, your first point of contact is a GP. GP stands for General Practitioner. This is a family doctor who handles everyday health issues. In the US, you might just call them your primary care physician. If you are feeling unwell, you need to make an appointment. You would call the clinic and say, "I would like to book an appointment to see Dr. Smith." The receptionist might ask, "Is it urgent?" If it is urgent, they might squeeze you in. To squeeze someone in means to find a tiny space in the schedule for them. If it is not urgent, they might give you a slot next week. If you cannot wait, you might go to a walk-in clinic. A walk-in clinic is a place where you don't need an appointment. You just arrive and wait your turn. Now let's talk about how to describe what is wrong. We often use the phrase, "I am feeling under the weather." This is a great idiom that means you are feeling sick, but not terribly sick, just a bit unwell. If you think you are starting to get sick, you can say, "I think I am coming down with something." To come down with something means to start catching an illness, usually a cold or the flu. But when you are in front of the doctor, you need to be specific about your symptoms. Symptoms are the physical signs of illness. Let's look at the difference between pain, ache, and sore. These three words often confuse learners. An ache is usually a continuous dull pain that isn't too strong but is annoying. You have a headache, a stomach ache, or a backache. We usually combine these with body parts. Pain is a more general word, but it is often used for something sharper or more sudden. You might say, I have a sharp pain in my chest, or I have a shooting pain in my leg. Shooting means it travels quickly like a bullet. Sore is an adjective often used for skin or muscles. If you went to the gym yesterday, your muscles are sore. If your throat hurts when you swallow, you have a sore throat. So to recap, I have a headache, noun. I feel pain, noun. My throat is sore, adjective. When the doctor asks, what seems to be the trouble? You can list your symptoms. You might say, I have a runny nose and a fever. A runny nose is when liquid comes out of your nose. A fever is when your body temperature is too high. You might also have the chills. The chills are when you feel cold and you shake. Even if you are hot, you might feel dizzy. Dizzy means you feel like the room is spinning and you might fall over. If you feel like you are going to vomit, you say, I feel nauseous. Please practice the pronunciation of that word with me. Nauseous. It is a tricky one. After the doctor examines you, they might give you a diagnosis. This is the name of your illness. Then they might write you a prescription. A prescription is a piece of paper or a digital message that allows you to buy strong medicine. You take this to the pharmacy or the chemist. When you give the prescription to the pharmacist, we call this filling a prescription. You might say, I need to get this prescription filled. The pharmacist will give you the medication and explain the dosage. The dosage is how much you should take. For example, take 2 tablets twice a day with food. It is very important to follow the instructions. They might also warn you about side effects. Side effects are unwanted reactions to the medicine, like feeling tired or getting a rash. A common warning is, this medication may cause drowsiness. Drowsiness means feeling sleepy. If the bottle says that, you shouldn't drive a car. Not all medicine needs a prescription. You can buy weaker medicine directly from the shelf. We call this over-the-counter medicine, or OTC. Painkillers like aspirin or ibuprofen are over-the-counter. You might ask the pharmacist, can you recommend something over-the-counter for a dry cough? A dry cough is when you cough, but nothing comes up. A wet cough or a productive cough is when you cough up mucus. It sounds gross, I know, but you need to know these words to get the right syrup. Let's move to a more serious scenario. If you have a medical emergency, you need to call for an ambulance. In the US, you dial 911. In the UK, you dial 999. In Europe, it is often 112. You will be taken to the hospital. In the US, the emergency department is called the ER, or emergency room. In the UK, it is called A&E, which stands for accident and emergency. Hopefully, you will never need these words, but it is better to be safe than sorry. To be better safe than sorry is a proverb meaning it is better to prepare for the worst, even if it doesn't happen. Now let's shift our focus to prevention and fitness. They say prevention is better than cure. Staying healthy often involves exercise. You might decide to join a gym. When you go to a gym, you might say, I want to sign up for a membership. Once you are inside, you have 2 main types of exercise, cardio and strength training. Cardio, short for cardiovascular, is exercise that raises your heart rate, like running on the treadmill or using the elliptical machine. Strength training involves lifting weights to build muscle. You might use dumbbells or barbells. A common slang term for going to the gym is working out. You don't say, I am practicing sport. You say, I am working out. If you are lifting heavy weights, you might ask someone to spot you. To spot someone means to watch them and help them if the weight is too heavy, so they don't get hurt. You might hear people talking about reps and sets. A rep, or repetition, is one movement. A set is a group of reps. So you might do 3 sets of 10 reps. After a hard workout, you might feel out of breath. This means you are breathing hard. If you are very fit, you are in shape. If you haven't exercised in a long time, you are out of shape. You might say, I get out of breath just walking up the stairs. I am really out of shape. Let's look at some idioms related to health. If you recover from an illness, you are back on your feet. For example, the flu knocked me down for a week, but I am finally back on my feet. If you are very healthy, you are as fit as a fiddle. A fiddle is a violin. I don't know why violins are fit, but that is the idiom. My grandfather is 90, but he is as fit as a fiddle. If you go to the doctor for a checkup and everything is perfect, you get a clean bill of health. I was worried about my heart, but the doctor gave me a clean bill of health. We also need to talk about mental health. This is a huge topic in modern English conversation. It is becoming much more common to talk openly about our feelings. You might hear words like stress, anxiety, and burnout. Burnout is a state of emotional and physical exhaustion caused by excessive work. If you are working 12 hours a day, you might be at risk of burnout. You might say, I am feeling totally burnt out. I need a break. In this situation, you might decide to take a mental health day. This is a day off work specifically to rest your mind. To manage stress, people often practice mindfulness or meditation. Mindfulness is the act of focusing on the present moment. You might try yoga to help you unwind. To unwind means to relax after a period of work or tension. I like to unwind with a good book and a glass of wine. If you are struggling with your mental health, you might see a therapist or a counselor. There is no shame in this. You might tell a close friend, I have been seeing a therapist to help me deal with my anxiety. A supportive friend will listen and say, that is great that you are taking care of yourself. Let's talk about sleep, because sleep is the foundation of health. If you sleep well, you sleep like a log or you are out like a light. If you sleep badly, you might suffer from insomnia. Insomnia is the medical condition of not being able to sleep. You might say, I tossed and turned all night. To toss and turn means to move around in bed because you can't get comfortable. If you sleep through your alarm clock, you have overslept. I overslept and missed my bus. But if you deliberately sleep longer than usual, maybe on a Saturday morning, that is a lie-in British English or sleeping in American English. I love having a lie-in on Sundays. Now let's imagine a workplace scenario involving health. You wake up on a Tuesday morning and you feel terrible. You have a splitting headache. A splitting headache is a very severe headache. You cannot go to work. You need to call in sick. To call in sick means to phone your boss and tell them you are not coming. You might say, Hi, I am afraid I won't be able to make it in today. I am feeling really unwell. Your boss should say, I am sorry to hear that. Get some rest and feel better soon. If you need a few days off, you might need a doctor's note. This is a formal letter from your GP proving that you are sick. Let's practice a dialogue with a dentist because nobody likes the dentist, but everybody needs one. You sit in the chair. The dentist asks, any problems? You say, I have a sensitivity in my back tooth when I drink cold water. The dentist looks and says, you have a cavity. A cavity is a hole in the tooth caused by decay. You need a filling. A filling is the material they put in the hole. If the problem is really bad, you might need a root canal. That is a deeper procedure. You might ask, will it hurt? The dentist will say, I will give you an injection to numb the area. To numb means to make it so you cannot feel anything. Afterward, your mouth will feel weird and swollen. Let's touch on the vocabulary of nutrition. Food is medicine after all. You might talk about being on a diet. This usually means eating specifically to lose weight. But your diet is just what you eat in general. You might say, I am trying to eat a balanced diet. This means a mix of protein, carbohydrates, and healthy fats. You might try to cut down on sugar. To cut down on means to reduce the amount. I need to cut down on caffeine because it makes me jittery. Jittery means shaking slightly and feeling anxious. Conversely, you might want to bulk up. To bulk up means to gain muscle weight. This is common for people who do strength training. They might drink protein shakes to help them bulk up. There is also a lot of vocabulary around alternative medicine. This includes things like acupuncture, herbal remedies, and chiropractic. Acupuncture is the Chinese practice of putting needles in your skin. A remedy is a natural cure. You might say, ginger tea is a great home remedy for nausea. Some people are skeptical of alternative medicine, while others swear by it. To swear by something means to believe in it completely and recommend it to everyone. My mother swears by apple cider vinegar for digestion. Let's do a little role play exercise. I want you to imagine you are at a pharmacy. You have a cut on your finger. You walk up to the counter, you say, "Hi, do you have anything for a minor cut?" The pharmacist points you to the aisle. You need antiseptic cream to clean it and prevent infection. You also need a plaster in the UK or a Band-Aid in the US. If the cut is deep, you might need stitches. Stitches are when the doctor uses thread to sew the skin back together. That requires a hospital visit. But for a small cut, just a plaster is fine. I want to talk about the idiom getting a second opinion. Sometimes a doctor tells you something serious, and you are not sure if they are right. You have the right to go to a different doctor to see what they think. This is called getting a second opinion. It is a very normal part of managing your health. You might say, "The first doctor said I need surgery, but I am going to get a second opinion before I decide." As we wrap up this health section, I want to emphasize the importance of confidence. When you are sick, you feel vulnerable. Vulnerable means weak and easily hurt. Speaking a second language when you are vulnerable is incredibly hard. But remember, medical professionals are there to help you. It is okay to say, "Could you speak more slowly?" Or "Could you write that down for me?" It is also useful to learn the emergency numbers of the country you are living in or visiting. Put them in your phone now. Now it is time to get down to business, literally. For many of you, English is the key to unlocking your career potential. It is the language of international trade, global conferences, and multinational companies. Whether you are preparing for a job interview, writing an important email, or trying to navigate office politics, the way you speak can define your professional image. So let's polish your business English, moving from the basics of finding a job to the nuances of leading a meeting. Put on your virtual blazer, grab a notebook, and let's get to work. Let's start at the beginning, the job hunt. Searching for a job is a full-time job in itself. You start by looking at job postings or job advertisements. You need to tailor your resume in the US or your CV in the UK to the specific role. To tailor means to adapt or change something to fit a specific purpose. You don't want to send the exact same CV to every company. You also need to write a cover letter. This is the letter that explains why you are the perfect fit for the job. In your cover letter, you should highlight your skills. Don't just list them, give examples. Instead of saying, "I am a good leader," say, "I led a team of 5 people to achieve record sales." Use strong action verbs like managed, created, developed, and spearheaded. To spearhead means to lead an initiative or a project. It sounds very powerful. If your application is successful, you will be invited for an interview. This is the moment of truth. You need to dress the part. Dress the part means to wear clothes that are appropriate for the job. During the interview, you will face behavioral questions. These are questions like, "Tell me about a time you faced a challenge." To answer these, you should use the STAR method: situation, task, action, result. First, explain the situation. Then describe the task you had to do. Then explain the action you took. Finally, share the result. This structure keeps your answer clear and focused. At the end of the interview, always ask questions. You might ask, "What does a typical day look like in this role?" Or "What are the opportunities for professional development?" This shows you are ambitious and interested. Let's imagine you got the job. Congratulations! Now you have to navigate the onboarding process. Onboarding is the process of integrating a new employee into the company. You will sign a contract, meet the team, and learn the ropes. To learn the ropes is an idiom, meaning to learn the basics of how things work. You might have a probation period. This is a trial period, usually 3 or 6 months, where they can fire you easily if it doesn't work out. But don't worry, you are going to be great. Once you are settled in, you will spend a lot of time communicating. Let's talk about email etiquette. Business emails need to be professional but concise. Concise means short and to the point. You don't want to write an essay. Start with a clear subject line. Instead of just saying meeting, say meeting regarding Q4 sales strategy. Start the email with "Dear name" or simply "Hi name." Avoid slang. Instead of saying "I want to ask you," say "I am writing to inquire." Instead of saying "I will talk to you later," say "I look forward to speaking with you." If you are attaching a file, say "Please find attached the report," and always proofread. To proofread means to read it again to check for mistakes before you hit send. A typo, a typing mistake, in an important email can look unprofessional. Now, let's step into the meeting room. Meetings are where decisions are made, but they can also be a place of confusion if you don't know the phrases. If you are leading the meeting or chairing the meeting, you start by setting the agenda. The agenda is the list of topics to discuss. You might say, "Let's get down to business." This signals that the small talk is over and work is starting. If someone is talking too much and going off topic, you might say, "Let's stick to the agenda, please." Or, "We can take that offline." To take something offline means to discuss it later, privately, just between the two of you, rather than wasting everyone else's time in the meeting. If you want to contribute an idea, you can say, "Can I jump in here?" Or, "I would like to add a point." If you agree with someone, you can say, "I second that." If you disagree, remember the polite hedging we learned earlier. "I see what you mean, but I have a concern about the budget." If you don't understand, ask for clarification. "Could you elaborate on that?" To elaborate means to explain in more detail. At the end of the meeting, you should summarize the key takeaways and the action items. Action items are the specific tasks that people need to do. You might say, "So, John, your action item is to send the report by Friday." A big part of business is negotiation. Whether you are negotiating a salary or a contract with a client, the language is similar. You aim for a win-win situation. where both sides are happy. You might say, "We are looking for some flexibility on the price," or "That is our bottom line." The bottom line is the lowest price or the final offer you can accept. If negotiations get stuck, you reach a deadlock. To break the deadlock, you might have to make a concession. A concession is something you give up to reach an agreement. For example, "We can't lower the price, but as a concession, we can offer free shipping." Let's talk about office politics and socializing. The water cooler chat is the informal conversation that happens during breaks. This is where you build bonds. You might talk about sports, TV shows, or weekend plans. But be careful with office gossip. Gossip is talking about other people's private lives. It can be dangerous for your reputation. Stay professional. You might also hear a lot of corporate buzzwords. These are trendy words that people use to sound smart. Words like synergy, deep dive, circle back, and low-hanging fruit. Low-hanging fruit refers to the easiest tasks or targets to achieve. While it is good to understand them, try not to overuse them, or you might sound like a robot. What happens if you make a mistake at work? It happens to everyone. The best policy is honesty. Own up to it immediately. To own up means to admit you did it. You can say, "I made an oversight regarding the client file." An oversight is a mistake made by not noticing something. Then offer a solution. "I have already contacted them to apologize and correct it." This shows accountability. Accountability means taking responsibility for your actions. Your boss will respect you more for fixing it than for trying to hide it. Let's look at the structure of a presentation. You might have to present your work to your team. Start with a hook to grab attention. "Good morning, everyone. Did you know that our sales have dropped by 10%? Then outline your structure. Today I'm going to talk about 3 things. Use signposting language to guide the listeners. Signposting means using words to show where you are going. First of all, secondly, moving on to the next point. And finally, this helps the audience follow your logic. Use visuals like graphs and charts. You can say, "As you can see from this graph, the trend is upward." End with a strong conclusion and a call to action. A call to action is what you want the audience to do next. So I recommend we approve this budget today. Let's touch on the concept of networking. Networking is building professional relationships to help your career. You might go to a networking event. You need an elevator pitch. An elevator pitch is a very short summary of who you are and what you do, short enough to tell someone in an elevator ride, about 30 seconds. "Hi, I am Jessica. I am a digital marketing specialist helping brands grow their online presence." Practice your pitch until it sounds natural. When you meet someone, ask for their business card or connect with them on LinkedIn. Follow up with a message the next day. "It was great meeting you yesterday. Let's keep in touch." We also need to discuss remote work, as it is the new normal for many. Working from home, WFH, brings its own vocabulary. You communicate via platforms like Zoom or Teams. You might say, "You are on mute." This is the most common phrase of the decade. Or, "My connection is lagging." Lagging means it is slow and delaying. You might have a hybrid schedule where you go to the office 2 days a week and stay home for 3. This offers work-life balance. Work-life balance is the relationship between time spent working and time spent living your life. It is crucial to maintain boundaries so you don't burn out. Let's practice a dialogue about asking for a raise. This is a scary conversation. You request a meeting with your boss. You say, "I would like to discuss my performance and my compensation." Compensation is a formal word for salary and benefits. In the meeting, focus on your achievements. Over the past year, I have exceeded my targets and taken on extra responsibilities. Therefore, I would like to request a salary review. Be prepared for a no. They might say, there is no room in the budget right now. You can ask, when would be a good time to revisit this conversation? To revisit means to talk about it again later. Now, let's look at some idioms specifically for business. If you are very busy, you are swamped or snowed under. I am snowed under with paperwork. If you have a lot of work to do, you have a lot on your plate. If you start a project from the very beginning, you start from scratch. We need to scrap this design and start from scratch. If you are learning, you are on a steep learning curve. If you want to finish work for the day, you call it a day. We have done enough. Let's call it a day. I want to briefly mention cultural differences in business. In some cultures, like the U.S., business is very direct. Time is money. In other cultures, like in parts of Asia or South America, relationship building is more important than the contract. You need to spend time drinking tea and knowing the person before you talk business. Being culturally aware is a huge asset. If you are working with an international team, be patient. Avoid slang that might not translate well. Speak clearly and verify understanding. Your challenge for this section is to update your LinkedIn profile in English. Write a new summary using the action verbs we discussed: spearheaded, managed, created. Also, practice your elevator pitch in front of a mirror. Imagine you are meeting the CEO of your dream company. What would you say? Make it sharp, confident, and professional. As we conclude this massive journey, remember that whether you are negotiating a salary, negotiating a flea market purchase, or just negotiating which restaurant to go to for dinner, the principles are the same. Be clear, be polite, and be confident. You have the tools now. You have the vocabulary. All that is left is to go out and use it. Thank you for your incredible dedication in listening to this complete guide. We have traveled from the sofa to the supermarket, from the airport to the doctor's office, and finally to the boardroom. You are building a toolkit of English that will help you navigate almost any situation life throws at you. Keep practicing, keep listening, and keep pushing yourself. This is Jessica from English in Advance. Have a wonderful, productive, and healthy week. Bye for now.